welcome back to Caps Hockey Review, back with you finally. Regular season set to kick off this evening. Of course, the Caps won't get underway until tomorrow night. They'll be in New York City to take on the Rangers. Still, a little bit to discuss today. Of course, a couple injuries, big injuries to discuss. Also, somebody out there, former NHLer with a podcast, has a real hot take on whether or not Ovi's actually going to catch Gretzky and break his record. We'll get into it right now. Caps Hockey Review, let's go! And off we go. Caps Hockey Review back with you. Underway once again. New season. Plenty of excitement right now. Of course, the Caps will not open their season until tomorrow night, Wednesday night. But we still have a little bit to discuss. I wanted to get on here just shortly today. I'm not going to go real long. And just kind of break down what we're looking at going into opening night. Also, John Scott, anybody, former NHLer, I'll get into it, has a hot take on Alex Ovechkin. Apparently is not going to break Gretzky's record. Yeah, it's an interesting day. But we'll get started first with injury news because it's a little concerning today. Nicholas Backstrom placed on long-term injured reserve this morning, meaning he's going to miss at least 10 games or 24 days, whichever comes first. We kind of saw this coming. He was listed as week to week. This hip issue's been bugging him for quite a while. He missed pretty much all of training camp, didn't play any preseason games, obviously. There's a little bit of concern here. He's had injury issues over the last few years. He's been playing in pain. And you have to wonder at some point, is it going to get to be all too much? And it might. We don't know for sure. I hope he can make a recovery and get back and have a few more years still and play out the rest of this contract and be the Backstrom that we all know and love. The silent guy, he's a quiet guy, but puts up tons of points. He's so underrated. He's such a great player when he's healthy. So hopefully we can see him get back to that. Also, Alex Ovechkin. Unfortunately, the captain is looking like he might miss opening night. Day-to-day with a knee injury after a botched hit on Travis Konechny in the last preseason game against the Flyers. It caused for a little bit of concern. Like, the optics on the play looked pretty ugly, but listed as day-to-day, he's on the ice for practice for what I understand. Hopefully this means he'll be good to go for tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see. We always say the Russian machine never breaks. Shout out. I hope that's probably copyrighted, but anyway, it's not like they watch this and it ain't like I get enough views anyway. So anyway, it could be concerning. If he starts missing some games, it's concerning. He's still the motor of this team. He's expected to be the leading goal scorer. He's led this team in goals for the last 20 years, 15, 20 years. So not having Ovechkin, that puts a different spin on this team because they're not used to playing without him. It's a really, really weird feeling. And it's a weird feeling as a fan too. Like, wow, captain's out, best goal scorer's out. Where are these goals going to come from? Mantha's an option, Oshie's an option, but the boys are definitely going to have to pick up the slack if both these guys are going to be out for the first few games at least. So, some positive news. I don't want to get bogged down too much in the negative. Some young guys are making a push. As we know, Hendrix Lapierre makes the team out of training camp. Young guy, first round pick in 2020, had a great preseason. absolutely awesome. A lot of people expected Connor McMichael, including myself. We expected Connor McMichael to be the guy who was going to fill in for Backstrom at the center role. 2019 first round pick, had a great season with the London Knights after his draft, had a really good season with Hershey last year. Couldn't seem to quite get on track in the preseason early. Finished strong, but overall, I'd say LaPierre looked better. And this is a results-driven business. We all know that. So LaPierre naturally is going to get the first crack or the first shot at this, which he should. But with Ovechkin possibly being out as well, McMichael recalled from Hershey this morning, I think he's going to get a shot too. He's going to slide in somewhere. If Ovechkin's out, I'm sure one of these two is going to slide in on the wing, the other at center. So youth movements, the door's open a little bit. If these guys make the most of their opportunity, obviously they're not going to keep Ovechkin and Backstrom out of the lineup or anything like that. But they could bump out some other guys. We'll see what happens. Let's not put the cart before the horse. But some promising young guys starting to make their presence felt for the Caps. Also on the back end, Martin Ferravari. We love him. We're finally going to see him in the NHL. It looks like on a regular basis. He made the opening night roster. He's been playing with John Carlson on the left side quite a bit. I feel like that's a great spot for this guy. He's a young guy. He can learn. John Carlson, obviously a little bit older, in a great position to mentor and bring him along a bit. Take him under his wing and just teach him. That's great. That's awesome for Ferravari. That's awesome for the team. Let's hope it pans out. Now, jumping past the Caps, not entirely, but for right now, some news coming out. I guess not news, some quotes, some audio, some sound bites circulating the Twitterverse a little bit. John Scott, former NHLer, enforcer, tough guy. Great story. Most people know this by now. Came up through the minors, was riding the bus while he was finishing his engineering degree, and made it to the NHL. Tough guy, wasn't obviously relied on for points. He was a fighter. So, but his biggest claim to fame, the Cinderella ending to his pro hockey career, was getting voted into the NHL All-Star Game. Back when the NHL still had an open vote, he got the most votes. This guy, NHL fans were so tired of seeing a lackluster All-Star Game, they voted in an enforcer by such an overwhelming landslide win. And the demand for it, the fans wanted it so much, the NHL had no choice but to let it happen. So what a great finish for him. He was voted All-Star Game MVP, scored a few goals. However, I like the guy. I don't want this to come off like I don't like him and I'm not a fan of his story. I'm a huge fan of his story. I always like those underdog guys who it works out for in the end and they reach their goals. I think that's awesome. However, John Scott on his podcast this past week has discussed NHL playoff teams, who he thinks is going to make it in. Well, he doesn't think the Caps are making it in, which he makes some valid points. We'll start there. I'm not going to tear it all apart right away, but the Caps are old. They are mathematically the oldest team in the NHL when you look at average age. However, to sit here and say that the Caps are a dumpster fire, that they're disconnected, that they just can't do it anymore, I don't think that's really true. I think they had a downturn with Todd Reirden as the head coach. Anybody who's followed me long enough knows I am not the biggest Todd Reirden fan in the world, and I think he set the Caps back a little bit, if I'm being honest. But John Scott also had a real hot take on whether or not is Alex Ovechkin going to break Gretzky's record. Popular opinion says yes. It was doubted for a while, but everybody seemed to come around to the thought that one of Gretzky's records, one of his unbreakable records, we may actually see it broken. It's going to take some time, but we may see it. John Scott does not think that. He is quoted as saying Ovechkin is done. Done. Not going to break Gretzky's record, huh? John Scott. 286 NHL games played, 5 goals scored. 5. Alex Ovechkin has more career hat tricks than Scott has goals. If you multiply Scott's goal total by 5, you do not reach Alex Ovechkin's hat trick total. 27 career hat tricks for Ovi, 5 goals for Scott. Is this guy an authority to really have a legit opinion on whether or not Ovechkin breaks this record? Yes, he's a former NHL player. I'm not trying to take away from that. But come on. If this was coming from somebody like Solani, if Howe was still around, if maybe Brett Hull was like, well, I don't know if he can do it. That's a little bit more credible. Okay? And obviously Wayne's not going to say anything. He's been rooting for Ovechkin for such a long time. He's been open and honest. He wants Ovechkin to get it done. He will be the first person to congratulate him if he does it. But, John Scott, how dare you? How dare you sit here and say that the greatest goal scorer of this generation, very possibly the greatest goal scorer in NHL history, when you consider half of his career was played through the dead puck era where nobody could score, yet this guy was putting in 50 a year? How dare you? That is an absolute joke of a take. Alex Ovechkin will break Wayne Gretzky's record. He came back, signed for 5 years for that reason. Of course, he's not giving up on the team aspect. We're still looking for another cup or 2, hopefully, before they call it a day. Him and Backstrom call it a day. But John Scott, man, this bugs me. This bugs me a lot because, Alex Ovechkin has been front and center in the goal scoring race for such a long time. And he has fallen off a little bit, but the man's 36. And every time somebody comes out with a take like this and says, maybe Ovi's done, maybe it's over, maybe he's finally done leading the league in goals, you know what he does? He goes out there and leads the league in goals. To discount this guy at this point, how many analysts have made this mistake? How many years does it have to happen? How many years do we have to have this discussion? Oh, Ovechkin might finally be done. Is it finally over? Is the ride over? And he comes out and keeps doing his thing. Proves everybody wrong. And Mr. Scott, you will be proven wrong, sir. Your take is garbage. Don't be sitting there calling the Caps garbage. Your take is garbage, buddy. This situation shouldn't even be a situation. To say Ovechkin's done, absolute joke. So, hopefully John Scott from here on out can keep Ovi's name out of his mouth because, quite frankly, on Ovi's worst day, he can still skate circles around John Scott. So, Caps, opening night on Wednesday night. Should be a barn burner. Of course, the Rangers pick up Ryan Reeves in the offseason to deal with their Tom Wilson problem. We'll see. I'm expecting a lot of penalty minutes, probably a couple fights. We'll see where she goes. Hopefully you'll join me all through the season. I'll be here giving my takes, giving my reviews. I hope you all will tune in.